Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Success Without Sacrifice show. And today we're talking about guilt and how guilt destroys work-life balance and how you can kick guilt to the curb forever. Stay tuned. Hi, everyone. I'm Kate Byars. Welcome back to today's show where we are going to be talking about guilt and how guilt tends to destroy our work-life balance. I'm here with Jadine Cleary, our Director of Performance Coaching. And you know what, Jadine? This is going to be, I think, a pretty killer show because I don't know about you, but one of the things I hear from the women we work with a lot is, hey, when I'm at work, I feel guilty because I'm not attending to, my family or my health. But then when I'm at home or I'm on my Peloton, I feel guilty that I'm not attending to my work. I don't know about you, but that's pretty common.
Oh, absolutely. And then we wonder why we're so unhappy or why we can't actually connect and feel joy. It's because we're feeling unfulfilled no matter where we go. So
Exactly.
I'm excited about this too. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, ladies, no wonder we're all burning out, right? If you're going to carry guilt with you wherever you go, that's not, like Jadine just said, a joyous experience. So I don't care, if you're a surgeon and you have to walk away and say like, I got to go have some family time. And then you feel guilty for the other 999,000 surgeries that are like backlogged, like that's good, a part of your reality, right? And if you're carrying this guilt that you're not doing enough with you, that's going to destroy family time. You're going to be distracted. You're not going to be present. And eventually what happens is you're just not going to be as effective. But at the same time, again, if you're a top exec or even in, middle management, and you're in that leadership crunch, right? Where you've got a team that you're leading, you're being stretched by them, but you're also being stretched to be more strategic. And you feel guilty that you're not enough to people. I'm not enough as a leader. I'm not enough for my team. Oh my gosh, now I feel guilty. I'm not enough for my management team by providing more strategy. Oh gosh, and now I feel guilty that, like you see the swirl, and I know you all are experiencing it, and it's really, really common. So the first thing that I want to dispel in this broadcast today is that guilt is not a state of being or something you have to accept. And one of the things that drove me crazy when I was reading, oh my gosh, her name just went, Sheryl Sandberg's book, Lean In, right? And I was just recently reading, who else was I reading? Indra Nooyi's, right? And so I was reading these books by these top leaders who have these impressive careers. Like, let's just face it, there's a lot we can learn from them that, is very inspirational. So I don't want to take that off the table. But in both of those books, and I especially remember in Sheryl Sandberg, she talked about how when she was having to sort of like push her daughter away and say, hey, look, you've got to go to school with the nanny and the nanny's taking you, I got to go to work, how she felt guilty. And then right after that, Sheryl goes, but you know what? I just had to get used to the fact that this is just part of kind of the way it is in the big leagues, right? And no. I'm going to tell everyone out there right now, that is cultural. Ladies, we have been taught to condition ourselves to accept the guilt, and that is BS. And here's why, okay? First of all, guilt is an emotion. We're going to talk about emotions a little bit. You guys know that everything we talk about in this company, from human performance to having it all, means that you have to understand human design. You have to understand human behavior. If you don't understand human behavior, you will be constantly trapped between what society has told you to do. Okay? Which means you can have your big job and feel guilty and have resentment and feel, regret, or you can quit your big job and then feel resentful and regret and, be at home. So that is like, we're getting rid of that, lady. We have a new option for you, a new guilt-free option, which says when you understand human behavior, you do not have to live in guilt. You can have a huge career and a big, glorious life with family and health and all the things or whatever it is that's important to you. Sailboats and puppies. I don't care. All right. So the thing about guilt is it's an emotion. And if you don't understand what emotions are designed to do, then you cannot leverage them correctly. And emotions are simply signposts that tell you an innate human need is being met less effectively. Okay, a lot of big words there. An innate human need. An innate human need means it's biological. We all have it. It's innate. You are born with it. So when someone says, I need more time for my family, that's not a need. It's a desire Doesn't mean you need more time for your family. It's just the way we use it in our language. Okay. So the need attached to wanting more time with your family would be something like this. My connection to my family is, I'm just going to use this word, broken. My connection to my family is broken. And without repairing that connection, I will lose my family. Therefore, the strategy I want to use is more time with them. Does that make sense? But the innate need is we need to have connection in our lives. Without connection, we cannot survive and thrive. So let's go back to guilt. What is guilt? It is an emotion that's a signpost to an innate human need that we all have that is not being met as effectively as possible. So Sheryl Sandberg, well, let's go back to her. All right, let's coach Sheryl Sandberg for the moment. Sheryl has this big, huge job where she is not going to be able to take her kids to school every single day of the week. She is not going to be able to be the cupcake mom that takes all the cupcakes to the class parties. We get that, right? That is part of our reality, ladies, as women with big jobs and big careers. However, what is it that we do want to have with our children? Two things. We want to have connection. We actually had them so we could spend time with them and connect with them. And purpose. Purpose means we want it to be meaningful. Like we want to be good moms. We don't want to just like have children and do puzzles and games with them and then walk away and someone else raises them. We want to be part of influencing the humans that they grew up to be, right? So the innate need is connection and purpose. And when you are meeting those needs as effectively as possible, the guilt goes away. Because then when I have to tell my son, hey, you know what? I told you I was going to come play a game with you, and I just got a last minute call from the office that I do need to take, I don't feel guilty over that. It's a decision I'm making consciously to say, hey, look, bud, I know we're highly connected and I know that I'm fulfilling my need as purpose as a mom because I have all these other things that I'm doing in my life to do that. This one time that I need to walk away and go have this meeting, or the fact that the nanny takes you to school instead of me, that's not going to destroy my ability to be a great mom or be connected to you. I'm just going to choose a different strategy. Does that make sense?
So Kate, when I listen to you talk, I'm assuming that people are leaning in and thinking that does make sense. And I would love to have that, but how do I create it? Because the challenge is society tells us we need to do things in a certain way. And when we feel like we're not living up to those expectations and standards, we feel like we're failing, and high performers hate to fail. So what do? We try to chase what we know more, and then it leads to worse. Then we get this terrible advice of, okay, you know what, to be successful in business, you need to take the emotion out of it. Well, how the heck do you do that, right? So then as high performers, we're always coping, and then we get exhausted with coping. So we need a completely different lens of being able to look at things. And when we can understand human and biological needs, and when we can actually learn how to create our own pathway for authenticity that will match for us, rather than feeling like we need to lean into what society keeps saying, then we actually have access to figuring out how we can meet some of these needs in a different way. That's when the true freedom comes, and that's when the power of choice actually surfaces. And then we feel like we're not just living in hope anymore, because hope isn't a strategy. We feel like we're actually living in abundance and choice.
Oh my gosh, Jadine, you just said some of my two favorite words, freedom. Well, you also said authenticity, right? I think that's really important. But you also talked about choice. So freedom is about choice. And this is when understanding human nature gets so good. Now, again, ladies, for everyone who's listening to this broadcast right now, I am giving you the keys to the castle for the big life. I'm not talking about the normal average Joe life where maybe some of this information is nice to have, but really it's not really going to be like the end all be all for you. And that's fine. I'm talking to someone who's listening to this broadcast because I'm assuming if you're listening to this broadcast, you want what I want, what Jadine wants, what all of the women that we work with want, which is I want a big career and I want a big life and I don't want to trade off one for the other. And in between those two things is I want some control and some freedom so that I can do the things in my life that, like Jadine just said, is authentic to you. So how do you do that? Well, Jadine just told us. She told us the answer right there, which is this: guilt. Guilt, I feel guilty. I'm Sheryl Sandberg. I feel guilty that I am telling the nanny to go take my daughter to school instead of me dropping her off. And my daughter goes, Mommy, why aren't you taking me to school? Well, it's not like that's never happened to me in my own life, or my sons haven't said that to me before. And so the response is, hey, you know what, Jimmy, Timmy, Sammy, Susie, I know. And I would love to be able to take you to school. But right now, you have your job, which is to go to school. I have my job, which is to go to work. And you know what's awesome? We just got to have a really fun breakfast together. And that was such a special time for us. And now it's our time to do this. Right? Or I know, you know what? That feels really special. But last night I got to read you that story, and that was our special time together. So what I'm saying here, ladies, is there's other things I'm doing that I feel confident in meet my needs effectively. I've made a choice to be the storytime mom, let's just say, whatever. And you know what? If I'm on a business trip, or if I have a business meeting that's going into the late hours, do you know what I do? I excuse myself and I go have a little FaceTime with my kids and I read them a story for 15 minutes because that is something I've chosen to do, right? Everybody in the room, I don't care what's going on, even Sheryl Sandberg can walk away from a meeting for 15 minutes to go read your kid a story. And why do I know this? Because hundreds of women that we've worked with are doing this. They're deciding what is meaningful to them, and then they're creating that, and that's fulfilling their need for connection and purpose as a mom, let's just say, by doing story time. So then the next day when your child is like, oh, but mommy, I still want more. I'd say, look, I want more too. But we've had this wonderful story time. And then there's other things you're doing, right? You're not just doing story time. Maybe, Saturdays is when you do, pancakes and you go for walks in the park. And then maybe on Sunday afternoons, there's a special, family Walt Disney movie. I don't know, ladies. Like, I'm making these things up. Like, you have to decide what's authentic to you. These are strategies to meet these innate needs. And like Jadine just said, when you understand that those choices is this concoction, this recipe, this cornucopia of choices, that you're just saying, what is going to be the most effective way to meet these needs within this life that I'm building, and you feel great about it, the guilt goes away. So it doesn't mean now that your child isn't still going to want you to do other things. They're children. Children are going to continue to say, I want. And then you have to step back every now and evaluate, well, why is Johnny or Susie continuing to cry on the street corner every day when the nanny has to go? Maybe there's something wrong there, or maybe I could take them every now, because we also want to help our children meet their needs with strategies that are effective for them, but I don't have to feel guilty about it. I can just be curious and evaluate it and go, well, gosh, maybe the nanny's like horrible and she's like shoving her out the car door. Maybe that's why my child keeps asking. But there's no guilt triggered in me. I'm just curious because I know I've created strategies to meet my need for connection, strategies to meet my need for meaning and purpose. Those strategies are effective. My child is blossoming. I'm blossoming as a mom. The things that I want to happen in our lives, connection and purpose, are happening. And then it gets really good when you start sort of mixing it up, right? Like that's when you really get that choice.
Well, mixing it up is what makes it rich and vibrant. It's what makes it your life. And most of us are navigating with an outdated system, which means we're navigating unconsciously. So we try to bounce around between who's calling for me the most right now. And so that's why we feel unfulfilled too, because it's like, okay, my kids need me. Okay, leadership needs me. Okay, my team needs me. So we're bouncing around trying to meet everybody's needs. And when we're doing it without truly understanding what's happening for everyone, including ourselves, this is why we're actually not effective either, because we're only meeting other people's needs on the surface.
Exactly. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So when we can start to understand how to meet needs at a deeper level, and we start with ourselves and we know how to do that, we then come from a different place where we have more clarity, we have more certainty, we have more conviction. So then to your earlier point, Kate, I can say, okay, you know what, Jimmy, I love you. Today I need to go and have this meeting with Kate. Tomorrow or later on, I can circle back with you.
Yes.
And we can see clearly how to make that choice and deliver the message with certainty and clarity. So that even if, let's say, I mean, Kate, you get it, so you're easy, but if I was having to deliver a message to somebody else and say, you know what, I am going to step away right now. I'll circle back to you in half an hour or tomorrow. I am delivering that message from a place of certainty of knowing what needs to happen. So it lands differently.
Yeah. And that certainty piece is key. And I think as women, this is what gets us so, this is what leads to burnout. We don't have certainty. We don't know how to make these decisions. Am I doing the right thing for my kids? Am I doing the right thing for my health? Am I doing the right thing for my company? Am I doing the right thing for my team, my leadership, blah, blah. And we're so worried about doing the right thing for everyone else. We're not stepping back and going, okay, wait a minute. Every single human on the planet is a needs meeting machine, an innate needs meeting machine. It means biologically, if we don't meet our needs to some level, we'll die. But we're not talking about survival at this point in our life, right? We've evolved beyond just survival. We're talking about thriving. And if we're not thriving, then again, our species cannot continue to evolve because the species just gives up, right? And so we're talking about how do I enjoy this limited time I have on Earth by living my life authentic with the choices I have and having control and freedom, right? And that's what Jadine, you've really mentioned to us, which is if you don't understand how to mix things up and make choices that are authentic to you, but also to pivot a bit. Because let's just go back to my example where, okay, I've made a decision as a woman to, let's just say I have kids. Not everyone does, right? But like, let's just say I have kids and I'm going to do the bedtime story. And that meets my need for connection. At the end of the day, I get to have giggles and fun. And even with my teens, like they even like to read, you can popcorn read with them or even just talk about books you're reading, right? You're having this special time at the end of the day to connect, but that also fills your need for purpose because you're like, this makes me feel also like a good mom, right? That's the other piece that we need. Now the guilt can go away when we have to say to our child, I can't be with you tomorrow. But let's reverse the tables, ladies, because also, as Jadine has just said, you have all these humans that you work with that have the same innate needs. And part of the need that we're trying to meet at work is security, right? Like safety. I want to know I have a job and a paycheck. That's important. But there's also purpose, meaning and purpose at work. We want our jobs to be meaningful. If you're a driven high achiever, you don't want to just go to work and like stamp papers and go home for a paycheck. Like, no. You want to have an imprint, a big, footprint. So all these other people you're surrounded like, they're doing the same thing. And as Jadine said, when you can see like, oh, they're trying to make a big impact. They want security and safety in their job and they want meaning and purpose. Sometimes the day or the meeting or the decision that they want to make to meet their need for meaning and purpose and security is not going to be the same day, meeting, or moment when you also want to meet them halfway. That their moment of wanting to meet their need for security and meeting their need for meaning and purpose is actually in conflict with your bedtime story with your kid, right? And when you can see that and go, you know what, that person that I'm going to say I'm stepping away from this meeting, they may get upset. That may not be the strategy they want. They may want Kate to be in the room for the next 15 minutes. They can get upset. They can be a little frustrated, even if they're the CEO and you report into them. That's okay. They can get a little grouchy. That's fine. Because I know what need they're trying to meet in this moment, and I can speak to that and say, hey, CEO Jadine, CEO Jadine, I understand that this is a very important meeting and it's critical that we come to a decision tonight, right? I need to step away for 15 minutes and I'll be right back. So what have I just done? I've told them, I hear your need. I see what's going on for your needs. I validate and hear you. I'll be back in 15 minutes. There's a commitment that I need to take care of really quick and I'll be right back. I ain't going to tell them I'm going to go read my kids a bedtime story, depending on my relationship. I'm just going to say I'll be back in 15 minutes. And then I'm going to go to the lounge and I'm going to have a quick bedtime story with my kids and do that. And I'm going to walk back in. Now, they still may be a little frustrated. They still may be a little edgy and they may still pull me aside later and go, Kate, I didn't appreciate that. And I'm going to say, thank you. I understand that was difficult for you. And I appreciate you giving me that space. And that's it. We're over with. Nobody's fired me. Nobody's devalued me. Nobody said Kate's out on the curb. Everybody got their needs met just in a slightly different way than what we want. And this is the other piece, high achievers, because high achievers are all or nothing. And maybe you can talk to that, Jadine, or maybe not. But like that is a big thing that we have to learn to flow. Because if you can't learn to flow and you have rigidity, then burnout is coming. It is coming for you. And then you will be trapped between two choices instead of what we're talking about.
Yeah, because coping leads to burnout and high performers cope and cope and cope until they can't cope anymore. And Kate, one of the things we've been talking about recently with our clients too is feel the bristle and do it anyway. So if you're feeling the bristle, like, oh, they're not going to like that I say this because I do have another commitment. When you come from the place of conviction of knowing that you can pivot and navigate, you can feel the bristle, but do it anyway, because fundamentally, if I follow this pathway, I will help everybody get their needs met, rather than just playing victim to, oh, I have to go here, I have to go here, I have to go here. I hope it works out.
And you feel guilty no matter what, because now you've disappointed the CEO, you've disappointed your kids, you've disappointed yourself because you didn't get to read the bedtime story. You've disappointed your spouse when you said this, now your spouse has to step in and do the bedtime. You've just disappointed everyone and now you feel guilty.
And you feel like crap. So it's like, well, I can't win.
Yeah.
So in order to your point, in order to get out of that all or nothing, we need to learn a different way. And we can only learn a different way when we have a different paradigm. And the paradigm shift is, rather than chasing time and rather than being so rigid to have to stick to what we think are pre-agreed upon, positions, there's another way to look at it. And when we take into account human biology, it gives us more choice and it gives us access to that fluidity.
Yes. And it's so funny because, I think one of the main questions I get from clients when I'm, training or coaching is they'll say, Kate, how is it that you always have these things to say? Like you can always think of like, whatever, it's not really, but the perfect thing to say. And you're so calm and you're so cool and you're so collected. Like I can't ever think of those things. And the reason is I understand human nature. Like ladies, to everyone who's listening to this broadcast, like clients will say, Kate, like, what are the templates you use to talk? Like, teach me how to talk the way you talk because it just flows from you. You just very quickly are like, oh, I see the CEO is upset. Here's what I would say to them. Oh, I have a team member. The team member's defensive. Here's what I'd say to them. Oh, my child's mad at me and is having a tantrum. Here's what I would say to them. They're like, you always just pull this out. And I'm like, because I understand human behavior. So I'm not thinking about me and I'm not thinking like, oh, what fancy words could I come up with right now to get what I want. I can see what's going on for each of these individuals, the child, the team member who's defensive, the CEO who's angry, and I immediately can speak to their needs. And that's it. There's no guilt. There's no like, oh my gosh, what if they get mad at me? What if they do? They get to be mad. It's okay. People get to be mad. People get to be frustrated. People get to be whatever they want to be. I'm not going to own that. Why? I'm going to speak to their human behavior. I'm going to validate. There's no guilt. And I am consistently pivoting to create strategies, behaviors, and beliefs that meet my inherent needs. So really quickly, as we get ready to wrap up this show, one of the things you also have to get good at, ladies, is not just understanding human nature. Like, let's just say the bedtime story, right? Like that's my commitment. I'm going to do the bedtime story for my kid. It's meeting my need for connection. It's meeting my need for meaning and purpose. But something's going to happen sometimes. Like my flight was delayed. I was going to do the bedtime story from the airport. I had the FaceTime, the whole thing. Flight was delayed. Mommy's stuck on an airplane. And now I'm unable to communicate with everyone, right? That's it. You get stuck. You're going to feel guilty about that? No. It is what it is, right? Or there's times that maybe you can't do the bedtime story. You're like, hey, look, I really can't duck out of this meeting tonight. It's a pretty big one, And so I'm going to say, hey, instead of doing the bedtime story at night, I'm going to do it first thing tomorrow morning. Or I'm going to do stories on Saturday morning. Or I'm going to do whatever. And now I'm pivoting because it's not all or nothing. The goal is not to read a bedtime story every night. Are you guys hearing that? The goal is to have connection and meaning and purpose. So if I can't do the bedtime story, then I'm going to default to something else. Maybe it's a little text or a video that mommy does and she sends to her partner and says, hey guys, I couldn't do bedtime story, so I read one for 5 minutes, or here's a funny joke, or here's a poem I wrote for you, or here's an I love you, whatever. And I send that to my partner in lieu of that. Is it as ideal? No, but it's 1 or 2 times that you miss it. It's not every night. Do you see what I'm saying? I pivot and then I'm right back into where I want to be. And I think the other problem as high achievers that we have is we're like, if it doesn't happen this way, I didn't read the bedtime story. Now I'm a failure. Now I'm a bad mom. Now, and we come up with these big stories about how it's like, no, I'm just going to find a different way. I always win.
Here's the important distinction, because what you're saying is gold. We're not talking about mailing it in. Like, we're not talking about here's some little snippets of how you're going to build connection. What you're talking about is, because you understand how to truly build connection and purpose with your children, was your example, and because you are actually present when you're with them because of everything you're doing, then if you get stuck, you have more choices for how to connect with them rather than it just being so rigid. And that's where this all comes together, is if we're not understanding how to even get our needs met, then we're not even present when we're at work or with our kids or with our partners or your dog. Like, you don't even have to have kids, right? It could just be present in what's important to you in your life. So when you can come from that place of biologically being fulfilled, then wherever you put your attention to, it's that much more rich and more potent.
And when it comes to guilt, like I think the other thing, just to wrap up today's broadcast, is when I feel guilt now, it's rare, but when I do, I'm like, oh, I'm feeling guilt. Gosh. And maybe all it is, ladies, is a signpost. Kate, adjust something. I'm like, oh, I need to adjust something. That's all I think. When I feel guilt, I'm like, oh, I need to adjust something. You know what? I haven't been as attentive to my husband as I had been lately. I've gotten a little busy in the last few days or week. Let me make an adjustment this weekend and really, spend some extra time listening to him or getting involved in his world. Oh, I feel a little guilt. You know what? It's been a while since I've talked with JD. Let me reach out to her and just see. So now when I feel guilt, it's like, all it is a signpost. It's a positive thing. I'm like, oh, some guilt. What's going on for me? I evaluate where the guilt's coming from. I make a tiny little adjustment. Guilt goes away and I just move forward. So then you use your emotions for what they're designed for, not to beat yourself up and feel horrible about your life and burn out and give up what you've been created and called upon to do in this world. You just use them to make adjustments to your innate need, to the strategies you're using to meet your innate needs, and you move forward. That's it. So that's the other thing, high achievers. The goal here is not to be feelingless. And we'll talk about that maybe another episode. The goal is just to use those feelings as little, oh, I'm feeling some anger. Okay, what's going on here? Oh, I'm feeling some guilt. What's going on here? You evaluate it, you adjust, and you move forward. And then, ladies, life is grand. And your big, huge job is grand. And your family life is grand. And your health is grand. And life is flow. And that's what we want for you. So if that is what you want to, then I would like to invite you to share a call with us. And here's what that looks like. Our team has set aside time to speak with you personally in the next 72 hours about how you can get rid of the guilt so you don't burn out and you start enjoying your big career and you start enjoying your amazing life. Now, the call is 45 minutes. It's absolutely free. And we're going to talk about what is working in your career, what's not, where this guilt is coming from, and how you can start operating with authenticity and complete freedom. It's confidential. All of our coaches have walked in your shoes. They are absolute experts at identifying what's really going on and helping you understand the best options in front of you, okay? And most of the women we talk to say, look, this is like the best time I've spent on myself in years. So go to goodlifeinstitute.org/call. That's goodlifeinstitute.org/call. Book a call at a time that's gonna work for you. And look, if it's a fit for us to work together, fabulous. We'll be happy to explain what that looks like. But if not, we're gonna refer you to another resource. So grab a time that works for you. We are delighted to speak with you how you can remove the guilt and start moving about your very big career with tons of freedom so you can enjoy your life. All right, that is it for today's show. It has been our pleasure, and I will see you next time. Hi, thanks for tuning into today's show. If you want to subscribe, you can do that by clicking the little picture of me over there. If you want to book a breakthrough call, which you absolutely should do, you can click the button below or go to goodlifeinstitute.org/call to book an appointment to speak to us. I'll see you on the next show.